I'll still be here when you're gone. You gather souvenirs, but I will never be your pawn. Your pawn. Your pawn. My
Good afternoon, everybody. Welcome to another episode of the Down in the Valley podcast. My name is Edson Ochoa. Accompanying me today, the usual suspects to name a I believe that's a movie, right? A movie title. We've got Jacob Young, our co-host, and our special co-host Ray Silva from South Texas Border Sports. Please bear with us. I left late from work today, so had to pretty much hastily prepared this show. I know I shouldn't have, but it is what it is. So we have a lot to talk about, and I do want to make this a shorter than usual episode. So let's go ahead and get started with that. So first of all, let's go ahead and introduce to y'all and let them talk to you and our co-hosts. We'll start with you, Jacob. How are you doing?
Maybe just talking about El Paso Locomotive as well, so that should be fun.
And of course, from South Texas Border Sports, we've got Ray Silva. Ray, how are you doing?
Hello, Edson, and general public, whoever is watching us through YouTube, Facebook, Twitch, whatever stream you may be using. Thanks for joining us. It's a privilege to be back here.
So, and it definitely was a very interesting week leading up to last Sunday's match, I should say. I guess if I want to summarize last Sunday's game, San Antonio played like their fans banter. An utter unintelligible mess. That's basically how to best describe San Antonio on Sunday, like San Antonio FC fans banter. And the reason I say this is because all San Antonio did was put some bullhorns on poop emojis. That was their banter. That was it. And in the game, we saw pretty much RGV dominating San Antonio FC. So it was a fun match, to be honest. And I think this is the shape of things to come. I think San Antonio forgot that this isn't the same Toros as last season.
Yeah, completely agree with you on that. I mean, Tyler Derrick made more than 3 saves, of course. So that's not necessarily worrying because the defense cannot do it every single time. And even, of course, Tyler Derrick will make a mistake, which is why a goal got let in. But, of course, he got upset at himself, and he's not your typical goalkeeper, and he'll get after himself and even do a better job the next time. So that was a plus. Definitely just all around a very interesting game from RGVFC, being able to really what we haven't seen before against rivals. I think the last time that we really saw it was against Austin Bold last year, where RGVFC finally got a win. And that's kind of my point, is that Austin Bold had always gotten in RGVFC's head. And that, of course, we're talking about SAFC here, But that's kind of that same deal, that same mentality when it becomes a rivalry game. You can't let your opponents get inside your head, and they got inside of San Antonio's instead and really made San Antonio FC upset and made them make silly fouls, which only benefited RGVFC.
Ray, your thoughts on the game?
You know, for a person who had to leave the game late in the first half, tried to catch the second half at home. You know, the first 30 minutes I saw, I called this at the San Antonio podcast, the roundtable that good old Harry host. I I I said this that RGV was going to impose its will on San Antonio, and boy, I I somewhat look like monster dramas right now, because from minute one it seemed like RGV had the initiative to start everything offensively, and it sure did show with Wankuzane's first half goal, something that RGV hadn't done in the first two games. We waited to win the match late on, but now it was a sigh of relief to see a first half goal late on.
Definitely. And I think there were some changes in the lineup that I really, really liked. I don't have fancy graphics this week. So everybody, please excuse me. I know a lot of people liked it, but I couldn't get it prepared for this week. But let's go over the lineup, and I will tell you what I liked about this lineup. But before we do that, I want to say hi to everybody that's in the chat. We've got Jorge Peña Jr. on Facebook. He says, hello from McAllen, Texas. Johnny, he's asking for Harry. So I do find it surprising that Harry isn't on. I wonder if he's still trying to save face in front of the RGV fans, but that's neither here nor there. Jorge Pedraza's back en vivo. And then Gilbert Guajardo says, what up, gang? Mike, the VP, what's up, fam? Jorge says, RGVFC kicks some ass. Pedraza. And then also we've got Blues fan back to watching the show. Blues fan, thank you so much for tuning in once again. He says, my prediction was wrong, but damn, RGV were on the front foot from the beginning. And we'll keep talking about that. And then Johnny says Juan David Cabezas hasn't even played. He did not play against New Mexico or against San Antonio FC. And Ray, they're saying they can barely hear you, so you might want to raise your volume up just a little bit. But yeah, so starting 11 for RGVFC, we've had Tyler Derrick on goal. He's pretty much going to be unmovable from here on out unless he gets like a red card or he gets injured. And then your line of four was Carter Manley, Arturo Dispe, Eric Pimentel, and Grant Robinson. Then in the midfield, you had as the holding midfielder, you had James Murphy. Then right in front of him, you had Rodrigo Lopez and John Sanchez. Up on top, your top three, and this is what I liked. Wankuzane out as a right winger, at least, Wankuzane was a number 10 with Christian Sorto and Elvis Amo as the striker. At least that's what it looked like. So according to the USL website, they played a 4-2-3-1 formation. At least that's how it looked like on paper. So just to reiterate, Tyler Derrick on goal, Carter Manley, Adrian Arturo Dispe, Eric Pimentel, Grant Robinson, James Murphy and Rodrigo Lopez. Up on top, you've got Christian Sorto out on the left, Wankuzane as a 10, John Sanchez as, on the right, and then Elvis Amo as a striker. What were your first thoughts on this particular lineup?
I'll take the lead on this one.
All right, go for it.
It for me, it kind of looked like the return of the 4-4-2 diamond formation, as I've been calling and screaming for a little while now. Although it didn't look like that on paper, like from the viewpoint that I had from from the media box or the outside of the media box look. That's the way it kind of looked like for me. And that was like a pleasant sight to see, because I kind of felt like Kuzain filled that role very nicely, playing as a number 10. Now, if you look at the rest of the lineup, you notice that you did not have a Juan David Cabezas, but you did have a nice combination of midfielders for the first time. And I think, and I think if I get this wrong, I get this wrong, but I just sincerely feel like this is going to be, it's going to be more of a rotational move until the middle of June, when everyone is back. For me, you're going to see this thematic of Juan Carlos Osorio making a lot of Juan Cambios Osorio for a little bit. I mean, that's just the way it's going to be for now, because we still haven't seen Juan Carlos Osorio. We still haven't seen the other
Edwin Cuero.
Aitor Lopez, and of course Edwin, of course, and then Kyle Edwards is another guy who has not been back. So I just feel like this team right now is playing at no more than 75% of its strength right now with the current players that it has.
Jacob?
I mean, I definitely see that. And that's kind of what I saw as well, was the 4-4-2, when, of course, on paper it said 4-3-3 or something like that. But point being, it was a lot different in person than on paper once again. And that definitely benefited, because RGVFC for that past 2 weeks before this game leading up, they had only used just one formation, really. And so when they changed it up against San Antonio, guess what? San Antonio didn't have, not necessarily having the firepower or anything like that, but they didn't expect RGVFC to do that. And once again, I've been very impressed with Wilmer being able to change on the fly when substitutions happen and things like that, because that only helped the tactics out throughout the game.
Yeah, I think it definitely seemed like San Antonio was, as we colloquially put it, was caught with their pants down on Sunday. They were overwhelmed since the beginning. Not even 30 seconds had passed, and they already had a clear opportunity on goal that was sent over for a corner, and then they had another clear opportunity at almost the 3rd minute, and it was pretty much. It wasn't until maybe the 20th minute where it felt like San Antonio was starting to kind of get a little groove on the Toros. But honestly, there really wasn't a lot of danger on Tyler Derrick's goal. And then, like you mentioned, Rodrigo Lopez was getting into the San Antonio defenders' head. Someone within the organization reached out, within the Toros organization, reached out to me and said, and I quote, "This team really wants to kick San Antonio's ass." And they showed it on Sunday. They showed that hunger. They showed that determination. They showed that willing to represent the Rio Grande Valley against San Antonio FC, and not just with guts, but also tactical awareness and soccer intelligence. I think
Producto de gallina.
pretty much. But I think that they fulfilled their objective. And let me tell you the stats. Here's a shocker to San Antonio fans. It shouldn't be a shocker for us. 71.1% possession by the Toros compared to 28.9%. Remember how last season the Toros almost always had very little possession, maybe like in the 30s or low 40s possession. It was rare when they had majority of the game where they had possession. This is staggering. 71.1%. 0.1% possession. They did not allow San Antonio to be comfortable with having the ball. And it showed. It showed with San Antonio how Emil Cuello was desperate because they couldn't find a way to get some danger on Tyler Derrick's goal. Excuse me. And then another interesting stat: 13 interceptions from the Toros, 8 interceptions from San Antonio. Passing accuracy in opponent's half. This is how good the RGV defense was. 65.3% from the Toros, which is good. 35.8% from San Antonio. The pressure that RGV was putting on San Antonio, whether it was on Emil Cuello or Chris Lehman or Cam Lindley, it was so bad for them that they were very uncharacteristically ineffective in the Toros' half. 46% total passing accuracy from San Antonio. That just shows how dominant the RGV defense was in this game.
Absolutely. It just shows that Rodrigo Lopez is going to be that menace in the midfield that RGV has been missing for quite some time. And you just got to ask yourself, what will this team really look like come in the middle of the summer, like your late June, early July games? This is just only, I feel like, 70 to 75% of this team. Only imagine yourself what the rest could look like.
Yeah, and I think that's kind of what we've been saying this whole time. It's really crazy. I mean, I know Coach Wilmer Cabrera constantly says we started late and all this other stuff, and we're still getting players. That is true. And it's amazing to watch that also. Not only that, but with new players, of course, coming into the lineup almost every single week, it just really gives Wilmer a little bit more of a variety to choose. Now, of course, you don't fix what's broke. You slowly let them into the main squad and see how that really goes for it. But at the same time, what we have right now is fantastic, and it's only going to continue to get better. And, of course, one player is I think we can all agree on, Vicente Sanchez coming back out onto the field later on in the game, really being that person to control the end of it. So, hey, it worked out in the end too.
So I want to ask y'all, and I want to ask the chat as well, because you know how in the last 2 games, I kept on blasting poor Wanku Zane, saying that he wasn't being active, that he wasn't taking the initiative to open himself up and, help generate on the attack. He was placed as a center midfield position. Today, he's placed, this past game, he was placed at a number 10, and that made a big difference. He was very active. He was carrying the ball. He was distributing. That goal that he scored was just magnificent. In one movement, he got past 4 San Antonio defenders. And I think, and I meant, didn't I? Okay, guys, didn't I mention that during preseason when he was announced? Didn't I say, while SKC2 had him as a defensive midfielder, the characteristics that John described about Wanku Zane, in my opinion, made him a better fit as an attacking midfielder. Did I not say that?
I mean, you did. We all heard you did say that. So, and it's true. I mean, you were correct, and he was correct, considering the fact that that's what we're seeing, and he is a much better fit, and it's working out perfectly for the team.
Yeah, I mean, I'll give you your props here on this. I mean,
Look, it's not
you-
often I get a win. Okay, just let me have it.
Okay. Okay. Fine. Have your dub. Have your dub.
W.
But you were
Have your
saying, right?
W. No. He looked very explosive from minute one. It just seemed like that little formation change and that tactical alignment that happened for this game. It kind of gave him that liberty to be that cerebral uh distributor, like kind of like complementing Rodrigo Lopez a little bit in the offensive end. I figured that Rodrigo would do a little bit more of the defensive stuff, while Juan Cusain opened up some of those offensive channels, even for himself in that goal.
Mhm.
Once I had the chance to see that replay.
So I want to ask y'all because I'm pretty sure Harry and San Antonio fans were, as Johnny puts it, they were making a bunch of excuses. How important was it that San Antonio did not have a player like PC in the lineup?
It was incredibly important because not to mention that there's of course one excuse that we will hear San Antonio FC fans say till the end of the season, even after game 2 and game 3 and game 4. The first game was all fluke because we had 2 players suspended or whatever. Whatever. I mean, the truth being, y'all didn't have a bench. Y'all could not stop anybody. Y'all didn't have a player like him. So, hey, it worked out in the Toros' favor. And 3 points up on the board for RGVFC because they shut down the rest of the lineup, considering they most likely would have shut down the player that had the red.
Absolutely. I just think that PC, I think he's one of those essential pieces for San Antonio to do a lot of the work that they usually do, either offensively or defensively, because he's kind of like that catalyst that San Antonio was missing. But them taking away their 2 and 3 options in Lindley and the other midfielder, which started the game. Also, yes, that taking away those channels kind of did help too as well.
Yeah, I was definitely surprised at, like I said, how dominant RGV was. I don't think we've seen such a dominant force against San Antonio, I think, ever. Like this dominant, I don't think we've ever seen it. And I honestly think the scoreline doesn't do the performance justice.
I would compare it to inaugural season where we ended up beating them 3-0 to knock them out of the playoffs for good. I think that came as close as to what we saw Sunday night for me.
Yeah, I think that's a fair point. It's fair to say for sure. And I mean, we've seen it time and time again. Whether or not it's been a draw, it's really been that way of having. I mean, San Antonio FC's Twitter account this week and the fans were so bad at trash talking that they were saying leave it for the pitch and all of this, and or act like you've been there, something like that.
Mm-hmm.
And RGVFC have. That's the difference. That's how it felt as well, with that type of mentality of, look, we can prove something. They're undefeated, but RGVFC can come in and most likely get this victory considering how it's been. So they did exactly that. And you're correct, right? It did feel like RGVFC once again knocked them out of the playoff spot, which, who knows? That could be the game that ends up doing exactly that, even though, of course, we still have about 3 to 4 months left of the season.
And I definitely agree with Gilbert regarding Juan Cusain. He definitely made himself known in this game. I just hope that Wilmer Cabrera keeps on putting him in that same position as a number 10, because I think he showed that he is a better fit for that particular formation and position. Now, I hate beating a dead horse. Actually, if it's San Antonio, I love beating a dead horse. So, continuing on with the dominance on that Toros defense and offense. Okay. So, like I said, I feel like this scoreline does not reflect the dominance that RGV had over San Antonio. But here's why. So, the Toros had 11 shots total, and San Antonio had 8. Okay, that's not a big difference. And why are you saying that it didn't reflect, the performance? Here's why. Out of those 11 shots, 7 of those were on target. For San Antonio, out of their 8 shots, only 2 were actually on target. They also had 3 blocked shots from the Toros had, and only 1 blocked from San Antonio SC. That shot makeup, here's the most surprising part, and this is what I like about this team. For the Toros, they had 2 shots inside the 2 shots outside the box, compared to 4 from San Antonio, which meant the San Antonio could not get comfortably inside our 18-yard box. 9 of the shots that the Toros took were inside the box, which means that defense that San Antonio put, as much as Harry wants to say that, this is a patched up defense because of injuries and that red card that they got against Real Monarchs, for starters, as a soccer player, you're not supposed to lift your leg up to hit your opponent when the ball is out of play already. I mean, that's a given. You look for it yourself, And so 9 shots inside of the box, which meant that defense was leaky as hell. In total, you're talking about 63.6% shooting accuracy from the Toros and only 25% from San Antonio FC. And of course, Bobby says, Derek with the 3 saves, of course, free burger from Jack in the Box. So pretty much a win all around for the Toros.
Absolutely. I mean, for me, this was a very professional display, despite all the great dominance that it had over San Antonio for me. I guess the one thing you gotta look at for RGVFC is to use this as a stepping stone to just continue to have the momentum that it has right now. I mean, right now the team is on a 5-game winning streak dating back to last season.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Yeah, that's right, Jacob. 5. You can count them off. The last 2 from last season
5.
and 3 from now. 5 in a row. and it's kind of nice to have that sound now, because we haven't heard 5 in a row since inaugural year. Mm-hmm. Now, we may have heard 5 in a row as in ties or even losses, but not 5 in a row wins from inaugural year. But one of the things I really did like about this lineup is the defensive lineup that Wilmer presented. Mm-hmm. Pimentel, Dispe, Manley on one of the wings, Robinson on the other. I felt like that was great. I felt like both players were pretty active all around. And I know, Edson, that you're not a fan of Manley running up and down the flanks. But I mean, hey, I think that's where he's been like somewhat successful throughout his career, when he's had those opportunities.
So it's interesting because you're right. I did gripe a lot about Carter Manley at right back position. Honestly, I think in this game I have zero complaints about him. He was the one that started the play of the first goal, intercepting that throw-in from San Antonio. And I think the biggest difference, let me lower the volume of my microphone a little bit. Felt like it was going to clip. But I think the biggest difference between last season and this season, in regards to why he looked very out of place, is the fact that now he's got somebody that is going to pretty much take over his spot when he goes up and helps attack. So you'll probably see like Arturo Dispe move a little bit more closer to the sideline. And then probably James Murphy, or usually when Juan David Cabezas plays, you would see Juan David Cabezas kind of roam around and help maintain that line of four while Carter Manley was up helping out on the attack. Whereas we talked about it many times last season, there was none of that communication. There was none of that tactics in the 2020 starting 11 players, because they're really like the center defensive midfielder would not come down and help, or nobody would kind of like bother to cover the wide open space that Carter Manley would leave as he went out of the attack. And then remember, you also have to remember, last season we would lose a lot of balls in transition in the midfield, and so the RGVFC Toros defense was kind of left out of position many times. Whereas this season so far in these 3 games, I think outside of San Diego Loyal, where they kind of looked a little bit more exposed, I think they've been pretty solid in that regard. So if Carter Manley and the rest of the team continue to have that communication within each other and chemistry within each other, I really am starting to see why Carter Manley has played regularly in that position outside of the 2020 season.
Yeah, I'll have to agree with you there, Edson. I mean, it's very true. As long as he keeps continuing to do well in that spot, he's going to have to stay in that spot. At a time when he doesn't, it's going to look like Wilmer, messed up, and that's not necessarily where Manley needs to be. So right now he's doing a great job, and of course, the biggest thing I think I want to touch up on real quick, because
go ahead.
I mean, sort of to that point where these guys know that if they don't necessarily perform too well, there is technically somebody on the bench who will try to get their position.
Oh, yeah.
Especially given the fact that there's more people.
Yeah, definitely. And I think it's one of the things that Carson touched up on his article today on All Toros No Bull. He said, unlike last season where there really wasn't any depth in this lineup, there's plenty of depth with the Toros this season. And that's because there's still a lot of players that are not even on the bench yet because of visa reasons or any others. So, like you mentioned, I think it's correct that you mentioned, if any of these players let off the gas even a little bit, they don't have the luxury to do that anymore, because as soon as they do, they're going to get replaced with somebody else that is of equal or close to the level of talent that starter had. I mean, take a look at the fact that even without Juan David Cabezas, we pretty much dominated this game. So if Juan David Cabezas has an off day, or if he has an injury, well, we know that James Murphy is going to be able to take his place, and we are not going to suffer from it. And I think the same could be said about Carter Manley with Camden Riley. Although they do have different styles, like we mentioned, Carter Manley kind of helps out more on the offense than Camden Riley does. But we know that Camden Riley can be a good defensive player if needed. So Carter Manley, that, like I said, that makes Carter Manley and the rest of the starting 11 really pressure them to put in their 100% each time. And that can only be good for this club.
Yeah, one of the things that I guess that we kind of overlook is just how flexible Manley Carter can be in the back line. I mean, not only can he play you on the outside, he can also play you as the center back that can probably hold back that back line in case this team gets the knock on wood, does not get hit by an injury bug or so. So that's kind of what I liked about the re-signing of Carter Manley.
And see what else. So another thing to note about this game was the debut of John Sanchez to the RGVFC lineup. Honestly, I didn't really pay much focus into John Sanchez playing as a white midfielder. But what were your thoughts on his performance tonight? I know you did ask Wilmer about his performance.
After getting to see the highlights and everything else, I felt like he's gonna be a productive player down the line. I mean, right now, because right now we're just playing with patches right now. John Henry, he's gonna become one of those players that will probably need to fill in for Sorto or for Kuzain at some point. But seeing him in the starting 11 and having it being a little bit of a spark plug, only because he might have played out of position to where he normally plays at, just viewing his place through the transfer market website. I just kind of feel like he's gonna need a little bit more time to gel in a little bit. And I wouldn't be surprised to see him in the starting 11 against El Paso, to be honest with you.
Uh, yeah, I was just like Edson. I kind of didn't pay attention to that, on the right wing, but sure can tell you. I mean, if the team was gelling, that's a good sign that he was doing something correct during the game. So it is going to take time. I think that's the biggest thing that we can say for these new players coming into the game, especially for him. It's the big T word, just time. And only time will tell how good or how underperforming he'll be, as in maybe inconsistent. But I don't think he's going to be inconsistent because it looks like Wilmer, even in practice, and that's the coolest thing, just drills him.
Yeah, I mean, just for at least this game, he kind of looked kind of irregular, only for having 2 to 3 weeks with the team, Jacob. But that's like where, this is where you just kind of give him that type of adaptability with the team. I mean, it's kind of scary good that this is kind of happening right now early on. But like I said, I would just like to see what's going to happen in the middle of June, beginning of July with this team. How
middle of June, that is coming up, and oh my goodness, you're right.
So one of the things, I think it's him. If I recall correctly from what I saw Sunday, I think it was John Sanchez. He was also another one of those players that was really fast with the ball. Like, he was causing a lot of damage, especially in the second half on Liam Doyle's side of the field, which is, well, if you're looking at it from the point of view of the Toros attack, it would be on the right side of the field. But there were many opportunities where John Henry Sanchez pretty much dribbled his way past their defenders. And if it hadn't been for maybe an extra touch, and I do want to mention that as well, extra touches, or, the attackers not being 100% accurate as with their shots, he created some opportunities, and I am really, really excited to see what more he can bring once he continues to gel and raise his chemistry within with the team. But I do want to mention that as well, because I did say, look, the scoreline really doesn't reflect the performance. And I think the Toros had minimum 2 opportunities where they could have scored. And I think the Wankuzane opportunity in the 3rd minute was one of them, where Wankuzane was pretty much dribbled his way into the box towards the penalty spot. And I think he took one extra touch to try to find, that space up on Matt Cardoni. I feel like if he hadn't taken that touch, if he would have taken that shot right after cutting in, I think he could have scored that one, but that extra touch killed him. And he wasn't the only one. And there were some other players as well that took that extra touch inside of the box instead of shooting, and that split second was the difference between getting a goal and being in an uncomfortable position or allowing Matt Cardoni to make the save. But all in all, I think these are things that can be fixed as time goes on, as the season progresses, as they get more minutes, more meaningful minutes on the pitch and in training. So honestly, so far, I'm not really that worried performance wise. What I am worried about, and I did mention this last week, was now we're going. We have 3 away games coming up, and I want to see if Wilmer kind of learned from his mistakes that he had with the Houston Dynamo, in regards to how he puts this team to play. Is he gonna play the same way he does at home, or is he gonna play a lot more conservative? Because I know in MLS, it really, really, really hurt his chances, because away the Houston Dynamo was pretty much irreconocible. Like, you couldn't recognize that this was the same Houston Dynamo that was pretty decent at BBVA Stadium. So that's the only kind of question that I have on this team. At home, they played nice. They played great. They play entertaining. But away, it's going to be a huge incognito that we're going to get some answers in this 3 on the road games that the Toros have coming up.
Yeah, so I'm going to take the reins real quick here. I'm looking at 2016 RGVFC's inaugural season with their road games and all that. They started off, I believe, 4 games on the road. That's what it's looking like. But with Wilmer Cabrera, with that, 2016 team that wasn't, a Dynamo team in general, they lost against Tulsa. I believe that's on the road. I mean, I typed in 2016 and it popped this up. My point being, it looks like a couple of road games, RGVFC were able to get victories, which is huge. And so that's kind of what you wanted to necessarily see. Of course, Los Dos, that's whenever RGVFC play them, we'll cross that bridge when we get there. But like a couple of draws, I'm hoping for 5 points on the road. I think that's doable. And definitely, if we're looking at the last time that Wilmer coached this team, he did a decent job on the road. I don't necessarily know if he was playing conservatively or what it was, because it just looked pretty good. So my point is, I think he totally disregards MLS when it comes to USL, which is crazy. He's got a totally different game plan because, remember, he's coached Chivas USA and the Dynamo, and both those times he did not look that great on that stage. But when he came to the USL, he was almost untouchable even on the road.
Right?
For me, I just feel like Wilmer understands the USL a little bit better than the MLS, and the MLS, I think it catches up a little quicker than what the USL does, just because of the amount of resources that are available in the USL compared to the MLS. That's just my thing.
I think you have a point there, to be honest, and I think he's shown that he can adapt, because remember, Harry was all like, "Well, this is a different USL than 5 years ago,"
and I'll give you
right.
the reason there, because back then when the Toros joined, they were a Division 3 sanctioned league. Now it's a Division 2 sanctioned league, so kind of on point with something there.
Correct, but I think, like I said, Wilmer has so far, he's adapted really well to the USL. I mean, it is only 3 games in, and they've all been at home. So I think it's still too early to make a quick decision. But like I did mention, the Toros have already equaled the amount of points they made in 2020. They're starting to get national attention by league journalists and other USL fans, including some fans from other Copa Tejas teams. And I think this club knows what they're doing. I think Wilmer knows what they're doing. I think Wilmer, even given the time crunch that he had to build a team, I think he's shown that he's built a really good team that can, I think, if I had doubts coming into this tournament, I think I'm very optimistic right now and say I think this team could hang with the best of the best. Maybe not Tampa Bay Rowdies level, but I think this is definitely a playoff team.
Yeah, it's going to be interesting. Like I kind of have highlighted in my calendar, at least, when RGVFC go and play Phoenix Rising, because that's going to be an extremely real test considering RGVFC most likely has all the team. So that's part of it. And yeah, it's crazy to think that this is the way it is. Of course, Saturday. Well, for the next 3 weeks, I should say, is going to be a big. Questions are going to be answered. There we go. Couldn't think of what I wanted to say there, but yes, questions will be answered in the next coming month, because that's going to prove whether or not this team is legit or we can just win at home, which is still brand new to this club, because let's remind ourselves this home record isn't that pretty at HEB Park.
Ray, you have anything else you want to add before we move on?
Let's move on, please.
All right. So, yeah. So, we'll talk a little bit about the upcoming match, which will be this Saturday at 8:30 Central Time. The Toros will be traveling over to El Paso to what's the name of the state of Southwest University Park, and I know they. All right, here we go. So
Are they going to be playing baseball instead of soccer?
Well, I don't think it can be worse than the Lab with New Mexico United. That was just horrible field. Anyways, so El Paso is coming in from a draw against New Mexico United at home. They played on March 8th. You're talking that they've been 2 weeks without any activity since their last game. They played on the 8th. They're going to be playing on the 22nd. So that's 14 days without playing a game. I don't know if that's going to be affecting them. But the other thing is they've only played one game, which they tied against New Mexico United. Also, add to the fact that my arch nemesis in Rocket League and El Paso Locomotive starting goalkeeper Logan Ketterer was loaned to Portland Timbers and had an amazing performance in his game with Portland, even earning, I think, Team of the Week, if I'm not mistaken.
I believe so, yeah. Yeah,
You
that
know?
was just, something special for sure. To replace Jeff Antonella like he did, that's fantastic.
So they lost. El Paso Locomotive lost a key player there. His replacement is a 19-year-old keeper. And obviously, I'm not trying to diminish, because you can find great keepers at such a young age.
But 19, that's not necessarily heard of to be at your peak just yet in a career.
But you also have to remember, though, like, Logan Ketterer is a player with experience. He's a good keeper, and he's also has experience within the USL and with El Paso Locomotive. So I think not having Logan Ketterer on the field is gonna hurt them. And like I mentioned, that keeper that we are talking about, his name is Marco Canales. So Carson said, with the sudden departure of Logan Ketterer on loan, there will be big boots to fill in for El Paso. The 19-year-old Canales served as Ketterer's backup versus New Mexico and should be expected to step in starting role. Javier Becker is the other option at goalkeeper. So you're talking about second and third stringers that could be used against the Toros. And that's even if Portland doesn't come and decide, hey, you know what, we want Logan Ketterer for good. So what's El Paso going to do now for the rest of the season? So I mean, it's good. It's good for USL that their players can make the jump to MLS and pretty much not have stage fright and kind of continue to perform.
Yeah, Sean.
Yeah, exactly. No, he actually said something about the Toros front office, but I mean, I think that's really beating a dead horse. I think everybody has proven that he's pretty much been in the wrong ratio. Anyways, but yeah, so there's that. He also mentions Leandro Carrijo as a player to watch. I'm talking about Carson here. There's a well-traveled veteran striker. Carrijo came off the bench to score the lone goal for El Paso so far this season. And he also talks about Dylan Mares. He led the club in goals and assists last season with 5 in each category. In the season opening draw, he tallied 3 shots, 1 key pass, and completed 83% of his passes. So, with all of this in mind, what do you guys expect against El Paso?
Oh, okay, I'll go. What do I expect from against El Paso? I think the Toros will be just a little bit more on the counter-attacking side. I don't think we'll see a lot of possession, but I could be wrong, and we could go for the attack. Why do I not think that we'll really go on the attack? It's just due to the fact it is still a road game. I think most coaches, no matter what, they won't necessarily park the bus, but they'll be a little bit more on the defensive side when you're playing on the road. Right now, the Toros are up, of course, with another 3 points. That's a big thing. Only getting more experience throughout practice. And then, of course, they get to fly this time instead of driving a bus up to El Paso, which is only going to help with not being as tired as they would be. And I mean, I'm just thinking it's going to be one of those defensive games, but from what we've seen, RGVFC can easily take advantage of opportunities. So that could be a possibility of how they'll face this game.
For me, it's one of the more important parts that we'll have to keep an eye out for this match is how they'll adjust playing to a baseball diamond instead of a soccer specific field. Everything's going to be reduced. And I had to ask Wilmer about that earlier today because they had to be they were practicing in reduced spaces now. And that was one of the things that they were working on prior to going to El Paso. So it's going to be interesting how they'll adjust on the fly to see how they'll be able to cooperate playing in a baseball diamond. Not that this would be the first time that under Wilmer's era or second that they'll be playing in a baseball diamond. It's just now that you've got a much bigger pool talent to choose from to see how they'll adjust playing to a baseball field rather than your regular size soccer field.
So I did want to ask you that, and I did kind of mention it when we started. I wanted to get your feedback from what you all heard from the media availability today with Wilmer.
Yeah. In fact, both my interviews are already up on my YouTube page now. So if anyone wants to go see it, just promotional plug here, Edson.
Of course, go ahead.
South Texas Border Sports on YouTube. Interviewed today James Murphy and head coach sporting director Wilmer Cabrera. They're both available. They're both live now. So if you want after the show or even right now, just give yourself a pause of 5 minutes. Both interviews are available. But yes, Wilmer is kind of conscious as to how they'll need to adjust playing against an El Paso team, that a team that hasn't played in about 2 weeks. So it's going to be rather interesting what lineup he'll select, because just remember there's already been three different lineups, and like I said, I wouldn't be surprised if there's a different lineup at least for this week, just due to talent pool availability for him.
Jacob?
Yeah, I mean, from what you said, I wasn't actually in the interviews, but it's it's true. We've seen three different uh, rosters, lineups, whatever you want to call them, as we've seen, and wouldn't be shocked to see a fourth one. Definitely going to be interesting with the baseball diamond instead. And of course, I mean, Wilmer Cabrera is correct as in the biggest thing now, of course, is that the rest, we all know they're going to be fresh. So it's a good thing. And yeah, since I think the way that the circumstances is, I think I'm just going to go off of a limb here and say we will see a fourth lineup, a fourth different lineup, and it's still going to work out in RGV's favor, just because they'll also have a fresh group of players, as well as you can sub 5 times because COVID rules still apply.
So I want to
Absolutely.
ask you, Ray. Last week against preparing for the San Antonio match, Wilmer pretty much mentioned how San Antonio played, described San Antonio, saying they were aggressive, that they were this, that they were dirty, or he didn't really say that word, but he kind of, you can infer from what he said that they were a dirty team. Did he mention anything about El Paso in this interview?
No. He just mentioned that uh, just how compact they play at home. Like, just remember it, and this is the first time he ever gets to see El Paso.
True.
Because remember, this is the first time we like 5 years ago, like El Paso wasn't even in the league, and to him, this is kind of like El Benjamin, as we colloquially say in Spanish.
Mhm.
But to us fans and independent journalists, they're not new. I mean, we've seen them plenty enough to think like, okay, this team isn't new. This team plays on the diamond. They like to play. They like to play a lot of. They like to play with a lot of velocity in small spaces, and I think Wilmer is going to have to adjust to that because of the baseball dimensions.
Looking into the lineup, that El Paso played against New Mexico United, you had Logan Ketterer, which is we know he's not going to be there. Then you had. Is there a way to get it to show the last names on here? Oh yeah, here we go. If you scroll a little bit down, they had Macaulay King, then Mekek Jerome, Yuma Monsalves, and Eder Borelli, a former Liga MX player with Bravos and Tigres, and I think Querétaro. So that's your four-man lineup, and then you have a line of 3 with Nick Ross, Richie Ryan, and Brian Rebellion. And then up on top, you've got Dylan Morris behind Aaron Gomez and Luis Solignac. Luis Solignac, if y'all remember him, he used to play for San Antonio FC. So very, very familiar faces in this El Paso Locomotive lineup. So now we go over to our favorite part of the show, because we're about to close shop right now. But predictions for this upcoming match against El Paso Locomotive.
Jacob, take the lead here. I'm not ready to make it yet, only because I got myself in a Mountain Division podcast, Kings of the Mountain prediction thing, and I don't want to give a lot away how I'm going to make my predictions.
All right. Okay, I'll go first here real quick. Yeah, I think it's going to be a draw. I predict this one to be the first draw, and I'm going to say 2-2. 2-2 draw, and both teams being able to give up 2 goals. I think late goals going to be scored by RGVFC to secure the 1 point on the road at the Diamond. I think that's a great result considering that's kind of the way that it's been over there. So, yeah, just a 2-2 draw.
So Gilbert brings up a good point. So he says, he gave his prediction. Oh, by the way, Bobby put 2-1 RGVFC for an away win. That's his prediction. Then Gilbert says, I think it'll be 1-0 due to being less space to navigate in the baseball stadium, so less room to pass and easier for teams to park the bus. And the elevation won't help either. Also, El Paso Locomotive, if I'm not mistaken, they are running at 75% capacity, if I'm not mistaken, at Southwest University Park. So, and for starters, the Eighth Notch and the rest of the El Paso fan base tend to be pretty rowdy at that stadium. So, I know we have players that are better prepared for these kind of scenarios, so I don't think it should affect that much, but it is something to kind of bring up. But here's my prediction. 2-1 RGV. I think this team is on a roll at this moment. The offense is getting better. I think fitness-wise, they're pretty much almost at 100%. Because remember, last season, the team was dropping like flies at the end of the second half because of that long road trip by bus, and the talent level really wasn't as good as this season's is, and we still managed to get a tie at El Paso, which, by the way, if I'm not mistaken, with El Paso, we have gone up against them 3 times so far. Ray, can you help? If you can help me out here.
Yeah, I can try here. Let's see. Dun, 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 dun.
Here we
One
go.
win, 1 loss, 1 draw.
Yeah.
Even Steven.
Mm-hmm.
Even Steven.
So I think this is going to be, you've got everything.
Yeah.
That it takes that we can squeak a 1-goal lead this game. You also have to remember, like I said, it's been 14 days, or it will be 14 days since they last played a game. And I don't think they had a friendly. So there could be a possibility that they're going to be like out of what's the word I'm looking for? Fuera de ritmo, like they say in Spanish.
They're out of rhythm.
Yeah, out of rhythm. Thank you so much. Blues fan says, Michael Reyes says 2-1 RGV with a late goal. Blues fan says 1-1 draw, late equalizer for RGV. Michael, right now we have the same amount of points as last year. We have 9 points, and we ended 9 last season. We had 2 wins and 3 draws, and everything else was a bunch of losses. So, F in the chat. So now, Ray, your prediction.
Normal prediction. Okay. Just looking here at the historical head-to-head. Each team has won at home, but yet RGV was able to snatch a draw thanks to a courtesy Chuy Enriquez late equalizer last season. or 2019.
I love that celebration.
Yes. So do I. We miss you, Chuy Enriquez.
Abrazo completo, hermano.
I say we snag a draw y le va a pasar otra vez la tragedia a El Paso. We take a last-minute draw from them.
So you're in agreement with Blues fan then?
Yeah, I mean, look. Yes, we may have the team in rhythm. We're playing in form right now, as Brits like to say. We're playing in form right now with a 5-game run dating back to last season. I think that that a draw would be very fair. However, if you ask me for my bold prediction, that may change a bit.
All right, we're actually going to the bold prediction.
Bold prediction, we we end up stealing 3 points from them, only because uh they don't have as much match fitness as we do. Only problem being that, as one of your chat comments posted, we're going on the road, we're going against the altitude, and we're not traveling by bus. So give me that in a bag of chips to enjoy, hopefully Saturday night.
Mhm.
But I think we'll end up stealing 3 from them.
Jacob.
Okay, I'm going to say, well, yes, standard 9 goal prediction, 5-4. RGVFC get the victory. Crazy game. RGVFC were that fresh, but could not stop some defensive things. And of course, they were used to the mountain altitude. Why? Because Wilmer has secretly been training them with those masks, those altitude masks on the treadmills. So they have that endurance. But in all seriousness, yes, I think 5-4 for the bold prediction. Going to be a crazy matchup. Not really getting too crazy with some fouls. I think RGVFC kind of keep their head. Maybe a couple fouls here and there, but no red cards.
All right. Bold prediction for me. I'm going to go on a limb and say my bold prediction is that Marco Canales, who is, by the way, is, if I'm not mistaken, he's been loaned from FC Juarez of Liga MX. It's just a curious stat. But anyway, I think my bold prediction is he is going to have the game of his life. And we
X-Tigre alert. X-Tigre alert.
and we leave with a loss from Southwest University Park. 1-0 loss for RGVFC.
That's also fair.
The
It's not
bold
even really that bold, that's just fair.
the bold prediction is that Marco Canales has an outstanding game where nothing goes through him. Mike says, bold prediction, Toros 3, El Paso 1. I could definitely see that happening. And he does say, I'm hoping their goalkeeper will get nervous. So there is that. So guys, I think that's going to be it. That's going to be it for today. Thank you so much for tuning in tonight. I appreciate all of y'all's support. Be sure don't forget to check out our social media accounts. We've got Facebook, we've got Twitter, and we've got Instagram at Down in the RGV. Also, if you guys have not done so, be sure to subscribe to our YouTube channel, like us on Facebook. We go live there every weekend, every Wednesday at 7 p.m. Today was a special exemption. Also, be sure if you guys have missed any part of the show, you can also check out the YouTube archives and on Facebook as soon as the stream ends, or you can check out our audio podcast available on Google Podcasts, Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Stitcher, Anchor FM, and TuneIn Radio, where you can listen to the podcast right then and there. Also, I want to give a huge thank to all of our Patreons: Jeff Strong, Harry Austin, Eddie De La Garza, Johnny Reese, Santos Cisneros, Michael Reyes, Javier Ochoa, my dad. Thank you all for your support. And if you guys want to support us financially, you can check out patreon.com/downinthergv. There are many different tiers to choose from, each with a different pledge. It isn't required to enjoy some of this content, but it does give some amazing perks to all of those that become patrons of the show. So check it out, patreon.com/downinthergv. Also, be sure to check out the sponsors for the Beautiful Game Network. By the way, a huge thank you to them. But check out their sponsors, Icarus FC and Roughneck Scarves. And of course, our personal sponsor, Natural Beauty Spa. Final thoughts, Jacob and Ray.
Final thoughts, should be a fun game this weekend. Going to be exciting. Real test. Once again, this is the true test if RGVFC are going to be that legit threat in the Western Mountain Division that this is called this year. Still crazy that we're technically in that because we are as far south as can be from the mountains. But that's besides the point. Should still be a great game. And I mean, looking forward to it. This road stand's going to be interesting, but it's going to be, I think, something special.
Another divisional 6-pointer for the Toros to try to cement one of those spots in the division. You know, every game against a divisional foe is a 6-pointer, no matter what this season.
Especially with Copa Tejas.
Especially with Copa Tejas, I just think that the Toros might have that extra bit of motivation with the way things have started so far and how they've been able to gel. I'm just hoping that Saturday night will be a finesse replay of what we've seen, of what have been seen so far.
I think my final thoughts for today, let's be optimistic about this team. I think they've shown us that they know what they're doing. Hint, hint. Sean Ringrose, hope you're taking good notes about that, because I think so far RGV have made you look like a fool after what you've mentioned on Generation Orange that one time. And I hope this continues. And I will also say, you can say all you want that, oh, you would like to see RGV triumph, but the fact that you're always putting comments saying like, oh, but if they fail, it's going to be pretty interesting. Like, you're like, let's be honest, you are not wishing RGV well, because if you really wished RGV well, you would not take pleasure in their defeats and in their failures. So just food for thought right there. I will also say that, guys, I love you all. I love the fact that you guys go out there and defend the Toros. Like I've mentioned before, Dynamo fans are always welcome. We've have Dynamo fans that are paying attention to what the Toros are doing in their new chapter. We appreciate their support, and they're always welcome here as part of the RGVFC fan base and of the Down in the Valley family. But if you're going to be messing with the Toros, like como dice el dicho, you mess with the bull, you're definitely going to get the horns with this fan base. And I think people need to understand that we are not going to be pushed around by the Dynamo fans any longer. We don't need to. We don't need to even deal with their BS. But it's nice when even our team backs us up on the field. So let's go support these Toros, whether it's at HEB Park or watching the stream. And of course, a huge thank you to Ron Patel. I wish you nothing but the best. We wish you the best in your future, and thank you for everything you did for the Toros. I think he laid an excellent foundation going forward. Hopefully, his replacement can continue on with the same path, because I think we're starting something here in the RGV, and it's going to be patient. We need to have some patience to get this to kind of see the results out in the stands. But so far, I like what I'm seeing. I like the feedback that I'm seeing from social media. So Ron, thank you so much for everything. If you're ever back in the Rio Grande Valley, just let you know, your first beer is on me. But guys, everybody that watched us today, thank you so much for your support. We'll see you all next week, hopefully to talk some good news about RGVFC versus El Paso Locomotive. We'll see you all. Take care.